This is our safety training video.
Is there some kind of test, Doc?
There will be a test at the end of this video. In order for you to use any of our shop, and specifically to cross this yellow line, you must score a minimum 100%.
100%. Oh, 100%.
It is absolutely crucial that you pay close attention for the entire duration of this video. Now, we're going to talk about PPE, or personal protective equipment.
But first,
Glasses.
Glasses?
Glasses.
Please wear your safety glasses.
Colton here is wearing a good example of both shop and welding personal protective equipment. Starting at the bottom, he's wearing a pair of leather steel toe boots. In our program, we require at least full toe coverings. We do not require leather or steel toe, but they are recommended. The one thing we don't want you wearing though is any sort of mesh cover on the top of your shoe. Welding spatter that's natural in many of our processes is very easy to burn through that mesh and cause an injury. So we want at least a full covering, no mesh.
You like mesh, Perry?
No, Baba don't.
Next, Colton is also only wearing non-synthetic materials. So what that means is we're talking about natural fibers and materials, cotton, wool, leather, or even silk. The reason we want to wear these non-synthetic materials is that when they burn or get too hot, they combust instead of melt to your skin, which can cause additional injuries. So good welding materials are always made out of non-synthetic.
Melting plastic.
Colton is also covering all of his skin with this material. All right, Colton, go ahead and throw your welding helmet and gloves on. Colton is putting on a auto-darkening welding hood that has a headgear attachment. We'll talk more about hoods in a minute. And then he's also putting on a pair of leather insulated welding gloves that will protect his hands from both light hazards and heat hazards from welding. Colton is now ready to weld. Welding emits 3 forms of radiation. And by radiation, I mean light. So the first type of light that welding emits is called visible light. That's the kind of light that we can see with our eyes. Colton's welding hood here will darken the moment he starts welding. That will protect his eyes, his retinas, from an overdose of visible light from the welding arc. The next type of light that welding outputs is called infrared light.
Go to infrared.
going to infrared.
This is how we can tell things are hot without touching them. If you put your hand over a hot stove, you'll feel that infrared radiation coming off the stove. Colton's insulated welding gloves will protect his hands when they're nearby the hot weld while he's performing it. The next thing Colton has is full covering of his skin. Welding outputs a massive amount of UV radiation. You can get a severe sunburn in less than 3 minutes with a welding arc, so it's very important to fully cover any skin that could be exposed to the welding light.
Ultraviolet rays, bad.
Now we're going to talk about our first aid resources.
My God! He needs medical attention!
All right, here in our first computer lab classroom, we have this first aid cabinet, bleeding control kit, and bodily fluid disposal kit. We also have the same setup next door in MT105.
I'm over here.
When it comes to these, please use materials out of this first aid kit at your own urgency. If you have a small injury that you can fix with a Band-Aid or a little bit of burn cream,
Would you like a coupon for burn cream?
please feel free to use this without coming and talking to us. But once you have used this, do come talk to us and let us know that you need something out of here. If I have a bunch of students all need the same knuckle bandage in one day, I want to make sure that I can maintain a good stock of this so that the next student who needs it can also have it. Talking about the bodily fluid disposal kit and the bleeding control kit, these you definitely need instructor involvement with.
You need a teacher.
This kit right here is for really severe conditions. We don't want to be getting in here and breaking the sanitary seal unless we absolutely need it. This is kind of the thing you use after you've called 911. This will help you get to the ambulance. The bodily fluid disposal kit, this is after the emergency. This is for our instructional team to clean up any biohazards that may be remaining. Now we're going to head out back into the shop out of the classroom and show you the eye wash station. This here is our eye wash station, and we also have a hand cleaning station as well. We have the same equipment next door in MT105. With the eye wash station, the main use of this is to dilute any sort of chemical exposure you have to your eyes.
My eyes!
We want to wash those chemicals out and mainly dilute them so that your body doesn't absorb a lot of them. When it comes to solid debris, this isn't always the best choice. So if you get something in your eye while you're in the shop, please get with an instructor before coming and using this. Especially if you have something in your eye to the point where you can't see very well. I don't want you stumbling from the back of the shop up here without being able to see, because that's a bigger hazard than what might be in your eye. Next, we have our hand washing station. Not a lot of people think of this as a crucial safety item, but in my opinion it is. In this environment, we work with a lot of toxins or materials and compounds that are hazardous to our bodies, things that we don't want to consume and absorb. When we get done every day, our hands are very dirty. It's extremely important to wash our hands before we go to the bathroom or go and have food or a snack, just to prevent our bodies from ingesting more of those hazardous compounds. With this sink, we have 2 soap options here. We have a heavy-duty degreaser and a pretty generic hand soap. This generic hand soap does work very well. This heavy-duty degreaser is almost overkill for most things we're going to be using in our shop. So I'm going to encourage you to use this kind of basic soap first, and then if it doesn't work well enough, go ahead and use this heavy degreaser. If you use this degreaser every day, you're going to dry out your hands and your knuckles may begin to crack over time.
I don't need it. I need it!
In the case that you do sustain an injury in our shop, you do need to report it to us immediately.
It's down in your report.
It's something that we need to document, record, and implement corrective actions if it's severe enough. We also want to make sure that whatever injured you isn't going to hurt another student. Also, if you end up breaking any equipment or finding broken equipment in our shop, that is something also that you will need to report to us, kind of for the same reasons. We want to make sure that that broken equipment doesn't injure another student.
I think I broke something.
It's unfortunate that you broke something, but we can make that a learning process so that you know how you broke it and therefore how to not break it in the future. When it comes to using equipment in our shop, we do require that you receive training specifically from one of our instructors before using any new piece of equipment in our shop.
Training.
Even if you've used that exact same piece of equipment somewhere else in your life, like at work, another school, or at home, our equipment may have slightly different functions that we want to make sure you know how to use safely. And again, when it comes to any injuries or broken equipment, please report them immediately to an instructor. If we find out later, we're gonna have to check our cameras to see what's going on, and we have cameras everywhere.
There's a security camera?
Security camera.
Security camera.
There's security cameras everywhere.
Okay, now I'm gonna walk over here to what we call our inspection table, or just general inspection area. You can identify it by the giant granite slab we have right here in the bend test units. We do a lot of grading of welds here. Usually we'll have an instructor stationed at this area, but if you can't find an instructor and you need some assistance or you're interested in a grade, hang out here for a second. An instructor will usually take a loop around here to see if there are any students with help. Now we're gonna go talk about fire extinguishers. So over here at the front of the shop, we have one of our fire extinguishers. We stock standard ABC fire extinguishers in this shop. We have 3 located in each of our shops. All of our fire extinguishers are located in a central location. So we have this one front and center in the front of our shop, and then as we go down the pillars of our shop, we'll have one along the pillars or in the back grinding room. To use this fire extinguisher, make sure that you follow the written instructions on the front of it. This is a piece of equipment that you can use at your own urgency.
Extinguishing fire.
But just like the first aid cabinet, please let us know as soon as you need to use it. Now we're going to follow Colton into the tool room, and he's going to talk about the types of tools you have at your disposal in our program.
Power tools? Power tools?
Located here towards the front of the shop, we have this first storage room we call our tool room. This is where we store all of our hand tools,
Hand tools?
safety equipment.
Equipment.
Come on in here, let's show you that. Located on this wall of the tool room, we've got welding hoods that are available for you as a student to use. If you're a high school student, you can use any of this equipment throughout the whole program.
For free?
For free.
If you're not a high school student, you may use this equipment for the first little while, but we highly recommend that you get your own welding equipment for the rest of the program.
There are many like it, but this one is mine.
But we do supply a few sets of welding gloves, jackets, and a variety of welding hoods. Let's talk about a welding hood. As previously mentioned, we wear a welding hood to protect us from sparks that come up, UV rays, any kind of radiation that occurs when welding. With a welding hood, we have a couple of modes on the inside that we can adjust, that being sensitivity and delay. Sensitivity being how sensitive the hood is reacting to different types of light. Whether we're outside and it reacts to like the sun, we want to turn our sensitivity down. But when we're inside and we're in a controlled environment, we can turn that sensitivity up.
There's sensitive and there's too sensitive.
And make sure that it's functioning properly that way. The delay is how fast it turns on and off. Most of the time you want a pretty short delay so that these automatic transitioning hoods are turning on and off quickly for you. The shell of the welding mask is protecting you from sparks and once again, covering your face from the radiation. As mentioned, we wear a jacket to fully clothe ourselves, and we wear gloves to protect us from the heat and when we're handling hot material. Right over here, we have a variety of tools that are for your use. You may use any one of these tools for various activities in the shop. Chipping hammers, brushes, welpers, clamps, grinders. At the end of the day, all of these tools need to be returned back to this location so that we're able to take count and assure that we have everything that we started with at the beginning of the day. In this room, we have several cabinets that have instructor-only signs on them.
This area is restricted, little boy.
If you need to obtain something from these cabinets, whether it be grinding materials, welding consumables, filler metals, stick electrodes, or anything else that says instructor only on it, get a hold of one of us and we will gladly grab you something from them. So from our tool room, come on this way and let's show you our example table.
For example,
our example table is full of a variety of the different projects, different weld joints and positions that you are going to be performing while in the program. From basic T-lap butt joints in their various positions to some of the more advanced projects that you're going to be doing throughout your time in the course. Feel free to come to this table at any point in time during the program for quick references, and oftentimes an instructor will bring you over here to show you as well and demonstrate.
Would you like to see a demonstration?
So upon being done with the weld, you're going to bring your material over here to the scrap bin. We recycle all of the material that we go through, and it's your responsibility to weld and then quench your material, then placing it back in the scrap bin.
First quenched.
When digging through the scrap bin, you can use this material for doing practice test welds and things like that, but material may be still a little hot.
Feeling hot.
Or a lot of sharp edges on this kind of stuff. So make sure you're wearing gloves when you're sifting through all of it. Like I said before, any material that you weld needs to be quenched. You can use these handles to put your weld on and then lower it into the water, or with vice grips or pliers, you can dip it in yourself, all while still wearing gloves. We want to protect you from the heat that's coming off. Like you want to stay safe, us instructors want to stay safe too. So before you take a weld to be shown to someone or put it in the scrap bin, it must be quenched. Once again, we want to keep our hands safe. So a good idea is once you quench it, bring your weld that is completed to us in your bare hand, because then we know that it has been cooled down. If it comes to us in a hot clamp, no. Come and quench it first and then bring us the material. Next thing that we're going to show you is our hot cutting station. So come with me. By our hot cutting station, we do have one more scrap bin. This scrap bin contains our stainless steel and our aluminum that you'll be using as well throughout the program and learning how to weld on a little bit there. In our hot cutting station, we have two different types of hot cutting. We've got plasma arc cutting.
Plasma cutter.
And we have oxy fuel cutting.
Oxygen and fuel.
Or otherwise known as PAC and OFC. PAC uses electricity, forms an arc to cut through material. Oxy fuel uses flammable gas and oxygen to create a cut on your steels. Let's talk about specifically the oxy fuel cutting station. On an oxy fuel setup here, we've got, once again, our oxygen and our acetylene. To be fully trained on this, you need to be in the introduction course. We will be covering it. You also need to have an instructor show you a more in-depth version. With this flammable gas, we always open the valve a quarter turn and no more than that.
No more than that.
At a quarter turn, we are able to easily shut this off in case of an emergency, rather than spending a large amount of time trying to then shut it off. We can quickly, once it's open, if there is an emergency, it's as simple as that. So let's move on over to here to our cold cutting stations.
Cold cut combo.
The iron workers. Once again, with the iron worker,
Bring me the iron workers.
You need an instructor to give you a full in-depth walkthrough on how to operate this machine. What I'm going to talk to you about is machine guarding, some safety features, really any equipment that you're going to be using here in the shop. The first thing we're going to start off with is, like any good machine,
It's a very good machine.
it's got a start button, but also a red e-stop, okay, or an emergency stop. This oftentimes is a red button that is poking out so that you can easily push it, much like this.
You remember the little red button?
In case of the emergency.
Emergency?
The next thing you need to look for on any piece of equipment is anything that's painted caution yellow. You need to be aware of.
It's yellow. It's bright yellow.
If it's painted caution yellow like this cutter here, it's obviously telling us that this is making a cutting motion. We don't want our fingers, our hands anywhere close to it. On the front of this machine, by the shear portion of it, we have this guard here that's also painted safety yellow. It also acts as a clamp.
Clamps!
This is a part of the machine that we definitely don't want to go sticking our fingers behind, because that's where yet another cutting action is happening. Keep your fingers in front of the machine guarding. Even on an iron worker, there are spots that move that are not painted yellow. Be aware of it. This machine is operated with the foot pedal, so being that it's operated with the foot pedal, we can be hands-free at all times.
I'm not sure what to do with my hands.
Be good just to hold them down by your side. Yeah, great.
Not putting our hands on any other moving parts that aren't painted yellow as well. So in addition to the iron workers in our cold cutting station towards the back of the shop here, we have a large shear and a couple of band saws. The gray band saw at the far end and this large green and yellow shear here are instructor only machines, and we do not want you running them at any given point. We utilize these machines to cut down larger pieces of material into more usable strips for you guys as students. So at any given point, we don't want them breaking down from an accident or anyone getting injured because they are larger pieces of equipment. The green bandsaw, you will have the opportunity to run and be taught on that. So let's head over to the grinding station towards the back of the shop with Josh and talk about some grinder safety.
This here is our grinding area. We want you to perform all of your grinding in this program in this confined space. The reason we want to do our grinding in here is that we have shields up that protect the rest of the shop and students from debris. It's also a very loud process, so this kind of helps enclose some of the noise to a localized area. Come with me in this way, we'll show you a little bit of our grinding equipment. This right here is one of our grinding booths. We have a open, clean work table here and a vise. We also have power up on the wall for you to plug a grinder into. Whenever you're grinding, you need to make sure that you secure your material to this table either in the vise or with a clamp from the tool room to the table. When grinding, we have lots of different types of grinding discs in our program that you can use.
I'm a grinder! A grinder!
All of them need to be inspected before you use it to make sure that the grinder is in a safe condition and there's no damage to the disc.
Inspection!
Grinders spin at an extremely high RPM. The disc has a structural integrity issue. That disc could fall apart while you're grinding. That'd be very unsafe for you and your fellow students. Please visually inspect the disc for any damage, chips, cracks, anything that may be concerning. If you don't know what you're looking at, please come talk to an instructor. We're more than happy to show you what a healthy grinding disc looks like. Over here, we have a couple face shields up on the wall for your use. Hanging up on this curtain here, we've got face shields here. These are here for you to use whenever you're doing a grinding operation that could be throwing sparks towards your face.
So I decided to get on my bench grinder, and a piece of metal flew up and hit me right in the eye.
We want you protecting yourself with these or possibly with a welding hood changed to a grind mode. Just simply a plastic cowl that covers the face and protects you from grinding sparks. Then right here we have an extremely powerful piece of equipment called the power sander. This is a very powerful piece of equipment that takes some extra precautions. We have this cover right here that should stay down, start the machine up in case debris comes out of it. Once it's started up, you can open this cover up right here and use this tool rest with metal on the tool rest coming into the sanding disc. When using this equipment, it's extremely important that you use the correct type of glove while handling your material. We recommend what we call a driver's glove. It's a thinner glove with less insulation. It gives you more finesse and dexterity to properly handle small objects while doing an operation like this. If you were to grind using big, heavy, thick welding gloves, you have the potential to lose control of the piece, and that could get sucked in here, causing damage to you, someone else, or the equipment itself. This machine, just like our ironworkers, has a big red button.
Big red button!
We call it the e-stop, right? anything that's going wrong, go ahead and hit that button. It will shut the machine down, and then you can come let an instructor know what's going on. Just like the grinding discs, we do want to inspect this belt for any damage.
Surprise inspection!
We've put a belt on here that has some fraying on the side as an example of what damage could look like. Again, as we mentioned in the tool room, it's very important to put your tools away. In this room specifically, clamps, hammers, chisels, and absolutely grinders must be returned to the tool room when you're done using it. If another student wants to come up and use it, you gotta tell them, hey, I'm putting this grinder back in the tool room. You can grab it from there when I'm done. Next, we're gonna talk about some areas where students are not permitted.
There are just a few restricted areas.
As we come out this way, to my right here, we do have a loft up in our shop. We have multiple of these. Students are not allowed in lofts in the shop. We also have various storage rooms in the shop where students are not allowed either. We've been in the tool room. That's a room that you are allowed to go into. We also have another material storage room you're allowed to go into, and next door we have a TIG storage room you're allowed to go into. Otherwise, your students are not allowed in our storage rooms. Over here, we have some high pressure cylinders that we're going to talk about. High pressure cylinders carry a large volume of gas in a very small container.
Gosh, that's a lot of pressure.
We use them for welding, cutting, heating applications. Right here we have a couple examples of high pressure cylinders. We're running this cool new system with this blue cap here on a high pressure cylinder for most of our inert shielding gas for welders. This bottle is very easy to use compared to an older traditional bottle that I'll talk about as well. You saw those older traditional bottles though on the oxy-fuel cutting setup. On these blue bottles right here, there's a couple sides to it. What's unique is this cap on top does not come off the bottle during use. Right here on the side, we have a red lever. To turn the gas on, all we gotta do is turn this red lever up and gas will begin flowing. In the center of this red lever, we have a capacity gauge. This will tell you if your tank is full, empty, or somewhere in between. On the side of the tank, we have this dial here. This is a flow rate dial. This measures in cubic feet per hour. This is the flow rate of the gas coming out of the bottle. For most of our applications, you want to be between 30 and 35. For special applications, we'll direct you on what your gas flow should be otherwise. Right here, we have a traditional old style high pressure cylinder. They have this big steel cap on top of them that gets threaded off. Underneath this cap is a valve with a regulator that gets attached to it. Requires a little bit more analog use. If you ever need a new gas cylinder because the gas is empty, that is a process you are required to get an instructor for.
I need an adult! I need an adult!
So we can ensure the bottle is being transported and installed safely. Now come over here. I'm going to show you an alleyway behind our booths that students are allowed to enter.
You know that alleyway?
Back here, these alleyways or raceways are where we store our welders for our welding booths. There's windows into each booth that you can access your controls and cables through, but otherwise the welders stay back here to keep them out of your way and to keep them away from the sparks and dust being created by your application. On these welders, we have power switches on the walls with a number in the top left corner. That number correlates with your booth number. So if you're, say, in booth 30, you'll look at the top of your booth on the outside, see that it's number 30, you'll come around into the alleyway and you'll walk down to booth 30 identified on the top of the power switch.
Where's the power switch?
When you're making adjustments to your bottle, to your machine, it's very important that you know that you're adjusting your machine and not the machine of the student next to you.
I'll teach you to mess with my machine!
To ensure that, follow the power cable out of the power switch to the machine to ensure that you're modifying the correct machine. Next, we're going to head back out that way and talk about a couple other hazards. This here on the ground in front of me, we have a piece of metal bar here. This is a classic tripping hazard you may find in multiple shops.
The debris environment is too hazardous.
Please be vigilant and be aware of your surroundings as you're walking around. There's various tripping hazards that may be in our shop. We keep our primary walkways clear, and you need to keep your walkways and work areas clear as well. But just be aware, this bar may be here today, it might not be here tomorrow, maybe there's two tomorrow. Just be aware that things do change day to day in our shop in terms of material storage. As we come this way, we'll talk about one of our welding booths. So right here, we can see this is booth number 35. We have 35 in this top corner here, and this is our opening to the booth. Some other things that are on the outside of this booth here, we can see there's this sign up top. This is called our process sign. This is informing you of what kind of machine is in this booth, as well as what processes this booth is capable of.
Okay, number 35, salami, mozzarella, red pepper, olive tapenade. Got it.
When you're going to a booth to sign in the morning for the process you're going to be performing, we ask that you try to find a booth that has the primary process that you're looking for. The reality is we run lots of multi-process machines in our program, so if need be, we can switch this booth between different processes, but in order to be efficient with our time and equipment, try to find one that works for your primary process.
Primary user? Wow.
Right here we have what we call our student login sheets.
Just sign in.
We have one of these for every single one of our booths. On this sheet, you're required to sign your name, today's date, and the time you clocked into your booth. When you're done welding, clean up your booth and record the time that you're done using your booth and that you cleaned it up. As we look inside this booth,
Look inside.
we have a couple things going on in here. We have a welding table. We can see the cables coming through the window. And then we also have some ventilation. Before you get started, make sure that the ventilation is working on the booth.
Oh, feel that wind!
That's this right here. You should be able to feel airflow coming through this chute when you're welding. If you don't feel airflow being sucked into this, please grab an instructor to let us know that your ventilation's not working.
She's gone from suck to blow.
Depending on some processes or booths you're using, there may be supplemental ventilation that you need to turn on yourself before you begin your work. When you're done welding, there is a couple cleaning expectations that you need to complete before you're done with your booth for that day.
To clean up, I'm cleaning up.
One is any material or scrap metal you have in your booth, you need to either put away in your locker or scrap into the scrap bin. The second thing is you need to make sure you turn your machine off as well as turning the gas off as well. And then the last thing is make sure to sweep the booth. We want you to sweep the tabletop and the whole floor of your booth into a dustpan and throw away any debris. Lastly, while you're working, make sure that these shades are down to protect your fellow students and instructors from potential art that might be coming out of the booth. Over here, we do have a forklift. This forklift is absolutely for instructor use only. Students are not allowed to operate, use, or sit on the forklift.
You need a license to operate this machine. That means the upstairs office workers can't drive it. Quiz, Mike, should you drive the forklift?
I can and I have.
No. I said should you. You should not drive it. You should not drive the forklift. You're not allowed to drive the forklift. It's not.
Please be aware that these forks are also tripping hazards. Now we're gonna walk over into our other shop, MT105. Both MT104 and MT105 are available for our student use. We're gonna access that shop through our locker room. Our locker room is accessible from both sides of our shops. As you're walking between shops, it's important to not be on your phone and be aware of what you're doing. Sometimes people may be bringing equipment or bottles through this area. It's important to not come around a corner really quick and pay attention to where you're walking. As we're walking through, it's also important to pay attention to any sort of sharp objects or things you might be able to bump into. A sharp edge on material may cause a serious injury, so it's important not to bump into things. As we walk into here, you can see this shop looks a little different. It's mostly our TIG shop, but we will be running other processes in here while you're at our program. You may have an opportunity to work on personal projects.
All we need is a signature right there. Great.
We're gonna need everybody's signature.
At no time can a personal project be worked on without prior approval from an instructor. Personal projects cannot involve drums or containers, so just don't bring any drums or containers into our shop of any kind. Specifically, we're not talking about water bottles, right? A water bottle is a container. What we're talking about is any sort of container that could contain a compound or material that could react and be volatile with other things we have in our shop. If you have any questions about a personal project, please contact an instructor. In the case of a lockdown emergency, the speakers at the front of the shop will alert us that there's a current lockdown in place. We need to make sure that we stay in our building. We are not allowed to go outside. You need to follow the directive of your instructor. So during a lockdown emergency, find an instructor and follow their instructions. In the case of a fire alarm, what we're gonna wanna do is exit and evacuate at the back of the shop. Here in MT105, we're gonna walk out this back door and exit out this way towards the parking lot. Heading that way. In the case of you being in MT104, we have these double doors right here where you will follow the same evacuation plan. This concludes the safety tour of our shop. You may now proceed to take the safety test. Remember, you must score at least a 100% on the safety test in order to use any part of our shop.
Once again, thanks for coming along with myself and Josh in learning these safety tips. And please, if you have any questions about what was discussed in the video, please contact an instructor and we'd be more than happy to show you those safety points again.